Hi, good evening. All right, time for a new month. In fact, we're just one evening before we actually enter the Earth Dragon month, which is going to be the main subject, of course, of the forecast for today. And it's all about the magnificent, majestic, powerful, but super deep double dragons, right? So more about that when I actually start. In the meantime, if you can help me, not just like, but also share this feed if you think that the information is something that benefits the people on your timeline, please do so. And if you're here early, drop me a quick note to confirm that the sound and also the visual is going smooth. Most of the time it is, but just as a double check. And for me personally, also a nice way to actually get warmed up, right? So I've been working on a few things simultaneously, so I have my focus kind of divided between personal consultations, preparing, of course, notes for our workshops. So that's a big bulk of the work. And then the sort of routine things that we do as Solil Trinity, right? Of course, one of my functions is actually to keep everyone updated in terms of the monthly readings, monthly forecasts, and also, of course, the overall guidance on how best to use the month's energy overall, right? So that is going to be the theme for today. So if you're here already, give me a shout out, please, right? I would appreciate it if you can do that. Just making sure that all the links are all in order, as well as with the sharings that we will be doing as well. Yeah. So Jaslyn, hi Jaslyn, thanks for being the first to say hi. Okay. Let me know if the sound and also the visual is smooth. It should be, but just give me a little confirmation. Anybody else who is here already, just drop a little hello. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, as always, just put it into the comment section. Hi Mayong. And if you have any questions to ask about the details, in fact, about, for example, today's topic is going to be about the Wu Chen Dragon Month within the Dragon Year. So anything in relation to that is welcome. If you have any comments to offer and share as well, right, I would also appreciate it. In fact, the more you do that, the more the people overall, collectively, who are watching this live, including those who are watching it post-live as a so-called replay on Facebook, will benefit from it. Yeah. Hi Chichi, good evening to you. Hi Andrew. I assume all is okay, right? Just give me a little bit of confirmation there, right? And then I will get started straight away. Okay, so let me just quickly share this also on my own personal page. So give me a moment to do that. Right. In the meantime, like I said, if you've just joined, if you can help me like and also share this, that would be really, really awesome. Okay. Let's see. Let me just quickly do this real quick. All right. And get to my feed. Okay. Here we go. And quickly do this. Right. Hi. Good evening. If you just joined me, give me a moment while I am just making sure that all the shares are done across all our pages before I move on to the bulk, in fact the key, which is the forecast itself. So I will multitask in between, right, while waiting to officially get to the forecast. So this is going to be a very, very, very powerful month. It's a very deep month, and the thing is, because it occurs in April, which is quite early in the year, so I think a lot of people, many people, including the people that we know who are not in tune, right, with overall metaphysics, right, they will find it strange to emphasize or to work on the advice and the strategies that we're advocating, because it is only April. So that's the thing that's very unusual about its timing, right? We have such a deep, reflective month for many, many reasons. It's not, well, of course, most of it is powered because of the double dragons occurring together, but also the other phenomena, the eclipse, the strong one that we're going to be having, the total solar eclipse on April 8th and 9th, right? So it's all converging to basically paint a very strong picture of the depth, and because of that, the intense personal work that we can do and we need to do to capitalize on the energy, which is very, in terms of an annual planning cycle, right? Those of you who are in corporate jobs, for example, it's very against that. Right, nobody goes down and sits down in April. Well, some company, it depends on the financial year, of course. Some companies that have a financial year that end in March, maybe it makes more sense, right? But those who have financial years which follow the calendar year, then it's very strange to suddenly, in a month like April, the fourth month, from the Gregorian calendar perspective, the third month from the Chinese Metaphysics perspective, right? To then go into deep reflection, right? Review, assessment, and then on a personal level, right? Healing work so early in the year. But that's what we need to do to capitalize on the energy of the double dragon, right? So thank you so much, Chi-Chi, for confirming the sound is clear. Hi, Pauline. Hi, Stuart. Thanks for joining us, right? So now let's get started into the picture, into the forecast itself. Okay, so let's bring out the presentation materials. Okay, so thanks for that. My assistant, of course, as always, is Nicole, right? So the month of April is, of course, the dragon month, as you see there, right? And let's understand it in terms of its layers, its original significance as the final month of the spring season. Okay, so that is the main characteristic of the dragon. Now you see, our spring has been quite lively, quite energetic overall, right? Particularly, right, as a short little recap, right? In February, we have a lot of the exciting energy, right, of the first month of spring, which is the tiger, and then because it is matched with the fire, right, the fire of the sun emerging from the tiger, right, so that's a very, very beautiful picture, right, so the sun supporting, of course, the growth of aggressive wood, right, which is basically the jia wood, the yang of the woods in the tiger, right, and of course, within the tiger itself, we have the ping, the yang fire itself, right, which is a nice foretelling of the energy, you can say the activation of the very, very strong energy, and it also coincided with this big entrance into period 9. So February was a very sort of exciting month from that perspective, right? The sad thing about it, or the reality, was that it was very short lah, right? With all the celebrations of the Lunar New Year and it itself being a short month itself, right? But nonetheless, of course, very, very powerful start, especially since the energy of Jia is something that emerges from late last year and is something that is emphasized this year because overall it is the theme of the year appearing with the whole dragon itself, the whole dragon year, that is, yeah? Then when we move into March, so I will recap some key details on it because March relating to April is a very powerful interrelation between the 2 months, between the rabbit and also the dragon, right? But on this particular placement of the season, right, this is when we go into the peak of wood. And in this particular case as well, on the surface layer, we have the opportunistic time of wood producing fire in its pure sense, right? The rabbit producing the pure ting fire, which is the fire of creation, the fire of light, the fire of the alchemy of magic, transformation, right? So that's why some of the early energies, depending on which layer, what areas of life and so on, right? Especially if we've been doing the work since 2 years ago, especially if we've been doing the work on a different layer since the last quarter of last year, so there is some room for it to manifest nicely in March with the burning fire, right? So that's one on the surface layer. Then on the deeper layer, of course, is something that we will examine, okay, in the pages to come, which is the connection or the interrelation between the rabbit and the dragon. And this is where it is significant as we now move into April, which is a pure earth month on the surface, okay? And again, more of that as we move on, yeah? So speaking of which, so it is the earth dragon month, right? Particularly it is Wu Earth that is sticking out or on top of the dragon itself. This is the monthly dragon I'm talking about. Okay, when it stacks together with the annual dragon, then we have the phenomena of the double dragon. So in this case, isolating just the dragon month as a layer. So the dragon is consisting mainly of Wu Earth itself. So that's why you see that up and down it is the same. So from that perspective, it is one of the pure chi months of the year. But those of you who are familiar with Bazi and you know astrology deeper as practitioners and so on, then you know that this earth, even though it is the dominant energy in the dragon itself, because it appears in the spring season, so of course there is a wood energy that is actually almost as strong, if not stronger than the earth energy itself. So that's why it's not as pure as a lot of the pure chi pillars that we had last year. 2023 was magical from that perspective, right? And then moving ahead, we have a month that is similar, but in a sort of reverse context, that's May, right? So when we get to that, And when maybe we get to the end of today's presentation, can share with you a little bit of an insight on that as well, right? But for now, on the surface, it is pure chi. And then in the dragon itself contains these two life elements, right? Two are the key elements to life, which is basically water and wood, right? Because water is the elixir of life that grows wood, okay, which is basically the growth energy, right? Moving from one stage to another is growth, right? And for this to occur, we need the fuel or the resource, which is basically water, the elixir of life overall, right? So this is the dragon month by itself. So just by virtue of it, in a single pillar like that. Now, then if you look deeper into it, of course, the dragon, like I was saying, right, is the last month of spring, right? That's why it's the checkpoint month. And it is also the month that wraps up the season of spring. So that's why, right, it is basically also, you can also see it as the maturity of growth, right? So the dragon energy is a matured wood animal sign, right? That's one perspective to look into it. Because the yi wood, which is basically the wood energy that is in the rabbit, which also basically is the manifestation of the strongest wood energy being in the east, right? The rabbit sign itself. So now it starts to basically get older, okay? So it starts to mature, then it will go into its grave, which is the dragon. So the dragon contains the grave of yi wood, and at the same time, it also wraps up, right, the energy of water, because water is something that occurs in the winter season where it's prosperous, and then in spring it is weaker, and then now it is about, right, because we are at the end of spring with the dragon month, April, about to move into the first season, the season of summer with the first month of summer, the snake. So when we move monthly, it's the energy, of course, is the monthly layer, and when we move annually, it's actually the same thing, okay, but occurs on a bigger cycle of 12 years. So we have to keep that in mind, right? So because we are moving soon into summer, so that's why the water, right, will enter the storage. It will be stored in there. So those are very particular to the dragon. So we need to basically keep in mind the maturity of wood, which is about to be combusted and burnt once we get into summer. And then, of course, with the safekeeping of water, because we're about to go into summer as well, yeah? Then, of course, overtly, there is this picture of stacking earth. So this is basically a way to look into the elements, right? Into the energy from the elements perspective to see what then we can do with it, right? But before we go into some more details, right? So as a quick recap, because it's still fairly fresh in the first portion of the year, right? Like I was saying, some companies have financial year starting in April. So that would be more opportunistic for this timing to take a deep reflection, a review, and to do an assessment before moving on for the rest of the year. And for all of us, of course, the rest of the year is important because it also sets the tone for the rest of the next 20 years or 19 years plus or period 9 overall, right? So that's stuff that I think many of us already know. So before I get into this quick recap, so we have the hellos, okay, from this particular page, but let's pull out the Jessie Lee page because I have this here already. Yeah, so that's why I'm not seeing the Jessie Lee comments. I think those comments actually came in earlier, in fact, right? So I will get right back to that once it's pulled out. Okay, recap as wood dragon. Now, why do we want to always keep this in perspective? As much as we look at the layer of the month itself on one layer, we also need to look into the interaction with the god of the year, right? Tai Sui. So Tai Sui is the energy that is in the planetary perspective represented by Jupiter. And then for us in Chinese astrology is basically the year, the ruling year itself. So it will always be the king, the leader, the queen, whatever you call it, of the entire year, setting the tone for the entire year. So we always have to keep that in mind. And then when we look into the months as they roll past, the interaction between the two, yeah? So quick hellos to Kent, Angel, and also Jinxia. Hi Jinxia, right? Nice to hear from you. And going back to this, right? So that's why keep in mind that Jia wood is very important because it's the first of the 10 stems, right? And it is also, of course, fresh into a whole new period of 20 years, period 9, right? and it will be the theme, right? Whatever its energy is to all of us individually, is going to be the theme of the year, right? So we all will relate to this aggressive growth energy. It's also the energy of yang growth, which is more, how to say, structural. It's more providing like a framework, right, for us to work with and for us to fill in the blanks, right, in terms of development. So in other words, it's establishing a pillar, establishing the foundation, establishing the base on a general sense, right? So it will apply to us from that perspective. And then specifically in a relation to you as a day master, well, that's a different layer altogether. Then the branch, right, gives us the challenges, right? And then, of course, by overcoming the challenges, we learn the lesson that is brought by the animal sign. Then, of course, it's going to relate to the animal signs in our personal chart as well, right? So those perspectives are individually taking into account, right? But for all of us, it is taking up the challenge that the dragon brings to us, learning the lessons, and then be able to convert these to opportunities. So the earthly branch carries the theme, right? The layers of these sort of opportunities for us, yeah? So just a quick rewind here. Why is it important? Because of the interrelation between the rabbit and also the dragon. Now this is called a harm. Okay, the rabbit harms the dragon harms the rabbit. So as we move from the year 2023 to 2024, right, that particular aspect of it becomes the key, right? The main focus of basically the manifestation of its energy, right? How it affects basically everyone, because the Tai Sui energy last year, the year of the rabbit, and then this year, the year of the dragon, will affect everyone, albeit, of course, in the smaller details in different ways. So it's unique to the east and the west position, right? In this particular case, the north and the south are also unique as we transit from the year of the rat to the ox, for example, the year of the horse to the goat. But it's a different synergy there. It's a different energy patterning there, right? In this case, it's got a linkage, of course, to the west, which is basically the transition from the year of the rooster to the year of the dog, right? So similarly, from the year of the rabbit to the dragon is a major transition point, right? Those of you recently in my workshop, you have the details of how that is so, right? But in short, it will be because it is coming to a wrap of the creation phase. Creation means more so when I use that term, I'm talking about developmental. That means you put your energy into something, let's say a career, right? It could be maybe one particular project. You devote your time, you devote your energy, right? And the best time to do it is during spring, as we know from the annual perspective, and also when we work with the years of the tiger and the rabbit, right? And when we put in enough energy to this, right, then when we get to the month of or the year of the dragon, then this is when we basically have it pretty much collected and also set, so that then we can mature it into something, right? We take the energy of growth, the energy of expansion, because wood is also about expansion, and then now when we come to the dragon, it is wrapping that up. Whatever work that we've got put into growth and expansion overall, we're putting a summary to it. So that's why while the dragon year is very, very exciting, of course now we have the layer of the dragon being influenced by Jia Wood. So that's a good thing, right? Because if it was a different element, right, that is a different part of the period and also a different year altogether, then we may not have that sort of growth potential still there. But having the Jia Wood as the theme of the year, remember I was talking about here, right? It's a good thing because it is telling us that it is not too late. Because if it's an earth dragon year, for example, right, or maybe a metal dragon year, right, it will probably be too late, and whatever that we have leading up to the dragon year is the way that it's going to shape up, right, in the next 5 or 6 years. But because Jia Wood now comes out with the dragon, so it gives us a bit of a ability to revise, ability to adjust, make changes so that we can then align back on track. So it's a great opportunity. I've actually not spoken from this particular angle before, but it just occurred to me, right? So I offer that to you as well, yeah? But then just going back to why this cusp is important, right? Because when we transit from the main energy of growth, which is in the rabbit, moving to the dragon, we are basically maturing growth isn't it? So when we get to that, then we have this animal sign interaction between the two animal signs there, which is called a harm. So normally this would create things like what? In the feeling, emotion perspective, irritation, right? Something happens that bugs us, right? I've not used that term in a long time, right? It bugs us, it irritates us, right? It triggers us, right? Literally, right? And then also because a harm is the group of relationships that have to do with unexpected events, issues arising that we did not anticipate and we did not see coming. So that layer is the overt manifestation. So when we are at this interlink between the 2 months, right? So both March and also April, we have this. If we have animal signs, which are these two directly in our chart, and of course if we have animal signs interacting with them, right? So this is when then it points us to the core issue, right, of basically this, because the full growth potential is in the rabbit. The mature, the expiring growth is in the dragon. So it's related to these two. So on the biggest level, the deepest level is related to growth. On the second level is related to the concept of either too fast or too stagnant. Now, many people, including myself, right, it would be related to the latter, which is that whatever irritation that we face, whatever that comes up as like, oh, I didn't know, oh, that's unexpected, ouch, right? Why is there a delay here? Why is it an issue now? Okay, and that, of course, will relate to different aspects of life, right, depending on where these animal signs are relating to your chart, right? And then this is where we have to look deeper into where is it that we've not actually broken through, right, and learned those particular lessons in the rabbit and also the dragon, right? So in rabbit, of course, it's about maximizing potential. It's about really developing ourselves fully, growing, and also being able to take up A to Z of life. I know it's a tall order, but you know, some people have high achievements lah. Well, when it comes to be able to do everything, right? And then, of course, the dragon itself then now points us to the issue of, again, right? Like I said, majority of us will be in the group of the not having done enough to break through. So the stagnation part of the equation, right? And then there'll be, of course, some people who would be on the reverse, right? Where everything is about expansion, everything is about, I will do this, I will try that, I will grow this, I will put effort and energy into this. So water wood, grow wood, right? In the past 2-3 years. And then when they get to this, is like they realize that they may not have enough resources. They may not have the plans laid out structurally, foundationally strong enough, so things will collapse, right? Because there has been way too much growth that's been activated. So that's why when we get to the April month, when we have the stacking of the dragons, is where the results will show themselves, right? So results means, okay, have you done enough, right? And if you have not, then this is where it will pile up, right? This is where it will pile up. And if we have done too much, then this is again where the blockages, right, or the fall throughs, right, is going to pile up also. Okay, so that's very, very important, yeah? So we see that now in terms of the monthly dragon relating to the annual dragon. So what is the annual Jia Wood? Well, function, right? So now it's sitting on top of the two dragons here, trying to crack through them, right? Trying to emerge through them, or trying to sort of uncover the different layers overall. Okay, and then of course we have the 2 drops of the Kueh water, which is in storage, and then of course 2 saplings, seedlings of the Yi wood, right? Which is basically also stored in the earth of the dragon. So how do I interpret this? So this is something to really keep in mind, right? Now, particularly because, right, the issue here is about the pile up. So when we have a pile up, right, so it's either something, I mean, it's obviously due to our own doing, right? Whatever ways it affects us in our chart, okay? So there's a pile up of things, right? So some of us have piled up a lot of responsibility and a lot of work, right? Some of us have piled up a lot of stagnation. Some of us maybe have piled up a lot of problems and issues. So how do we then deal with this? Then, of course, with the big energies of the eclipse, right, it can help us crack through it. And of course, then with the cracking, we can realign ourselves, right? But one key thing here that I want to point out for tonight that I have not specifically talked about, even when I did not have the slot or the time to address it in my workshop, right? which already ran over time, right, for those of you who are in it. So this is where we have the real opportunity as well to use these two ingredients in the dragon itself, right? The Wu Earth and also the Kui Water, right? Now, independently, they just exist as earth and water, but together they have the opportunity to actually combust to fire, okay? Now, to combust to fire, it takes work. It takes a lot, right? What it means that is an opportunity to burn away, okay? And because now we're getting rid of the Wu Earth, right? We're getting rid of Wu Earth in its interaction with Kui Water, and it's one, you know, part of the correlations of the heavenly stems, right? But on the surface, it sounds like, how do you do this magic? How do you take earth and then you basically mix it with water and it basically burns into fire, right? But it's doable, right? So this is part of the magic and alchemy. And most importantly, it gives us the chance to release earth, right? Which is basically a big theme that Jessie always talks about, right? Release the earth, transform the earth, and so on. Now, of course, this is not a major transformation, right? Let's get that clear, because the major transformation comes from the earthly branch, right? Involving the tiger, horse, and also the dog. And also between the dog and the rabbit, right? But in this case, it is still an opportunity to do that, because a lot of what we need to do to crack the earth, or after we crack up the earth, right, is to release it, right? Where if you have done enough of the work already, right, then you have already let go significantly. You have understood what attachment is, right? And you're able to basically breathe it out, sigh it out, release it. And if you're able to do that at a deepest core, then that's a release by itself. So it doesn't have to be, I am releasing my attachment, so I have to give up my material things. It's not just that perspective, right? It is more than that. Because earth is anything that is long-lasting, that is there, it is tangible, but it doesn't have to be just felt and seen and touched, right? It can also be something that's basically a construct. I use the word construct, right? That has basically fixed itself over time, right? So even labels to things, people, descriptions, right, of things, which is adjective, right? I believe that's the term to it. Adjectives and all that, right, has been existing. You talk about it in English ever since the English language developed, right? And so on into the different languages, right? But you get what I mean. So earth thing, right? It does not just need to be a material thing. It can also be a concept, right? That is firmly established. So those are all attachments, right? And these attachments, of course, create blockage in energy, right? And then for us as well, of course, our energy is in multiple layers, of which the most tangible, the most earthy is our physical body. So that's why this is also a great month to crack into the physical body, right? So right before this, a few hours, Jessie and I had a very, very effective, fairly short massage session, right? So it's ironic. So I was thinking about this, about how we managed to adjust, crack. Of course, this is the very yin way, which is basically you received the massage, right? But the yang way, actually doing it, right, through yoga, through whatever that can realign the body, right, and so on, that would be better, because we're actually using our own energy and effort to do this adjustment here, right? So this is also something that's very, very suitable for the month of April itself, okay? And then any practices that allow us to crack through energy, that's one layer, and then to realign it back, including, of course, using sound, right? Particularly, of course, using tools of sound, metal generally, when it comes to usage, metallic tools would be suitable to push through energy, right? And then we follow through, of course, with using earth, right? Basically using crystal tones, crystal bowls, right? Anything that produces sound of crystal, those are something that will be very, very effective, of course, for the realignment portion or the realignment opportunities, which is the key energy that we want to work with. So that's why deep realignment for April, right? And of course, for us, we are very proud of our Atma Bowl series, right? Many of you who know it, many of you have also adopted the bowls, right? So now the second order is available for you to basically see which bowl or bowls call out to you, and then you can place an order for them, because now we are able to accept after the first round that we've already delivered. Okay, so the link is there, right? If you have not checked out our Atma Bowls selection that's available currently, okay, so do check that out. Yeah, because it's one of the key ways we can work with the energy of April itself. Okay, so just to finish up here, right? When we put the month of the dragon together with the year of the dragon, creating the double dragons, right? So then we have got what about the little Yi wood there? Okay, because within the dragon we have the earth, who has the opportunity to combust together with the clear water, hence releasing attachment. Okay, breaking up the earth, and then more importantly, right, be able to obliterate it. Now, just to repeat, this is not an easy process, okay? Trying not to put a less favorable term to things, right? But it is not, because, you know, that's the so-called reality of it. It takes a lot of work to be able to do this. But if you can do this, this is one of the best ways, okay, to work with this energy, especially if you have been accumulating stagnation, right? Then it's the release in the particular areas of life that can actually help you remove the stagnation, right? Clear it out. Even though, of course, we've come to April already. Now, the Yi wood is little in there right now, and I can, of course, help to produce or fuel fire. That's why I call little fuel to fire, because Yi wood is basically hiding in there, right? As a sub-chi. Then, of course, you can also see it as a seed of future growth as well, right? So that is something that can then develop into you know, an area, a project, and a development all on its own also, right? So that's the Yi wood that's particularly in the dragon, okay? So now, then the dragon meets the dragon, officially we call it a self-punishment, right? So whatever that we've not done, whatever that we've done, right, it will show its results in a self-punishment perspective. Now, for all animal signs that involve self-punishment, there will be humanly okay? I'm sure when it comes to very, very attained people, right, the high monks, the lamas, and then the religious figures who are really transcending, okay, and ascending themselves, right? So I'm pretty sure for them it will not, you know, come out as anything that feels like a self-punishment, okay? But for people like us, okay, for mere mortals, okay, using the term generally, right, we'll feel like a self-punishment, right? Whichever way it is, right? Whether we've grown too fast, too slow, or even if we have basically roughly managed growth and healing pretty well, okay? That will still feel like, oh, you know, why did I do this? Why did I take it up, right? In the stacking. So it gets stacking of responsibilities and deliverables. That's one, right? Stagnation, stacking of blockages, stacking of things that don't work. Okay, so this is where you'll feel that I should not have done that, because the theme, the human emotion to self-punishment is that, right? I always feel that it's something that Jessie always talks about LLJ. Actually, these are timing less so right? Law lei jin, right? Where you have done something or you have not done something, you will still feel the self-punishment perspective, two things, yeah? So overall, it's about this, right? Is it growth, or is it stagnation, or is it attachment? Okay, because the healing theme is a very important part of it, because the dragon is the maturity of wood, right? And in this, it's summarized as the ability to basically grow, and then of course be able to know when growth is optimum, how to encourage other people to grow, and when to give up, right, on other people, for example, if they are just not on the right, along the same journey to grow, right? So these are all the themes. So within that, there's also attachments, because, you know, when we are able to master growth ourselves, right, for many of us, like I said, we have not actually done that, not grown enough, right? So then, of course, there will be this self-punishment that leads from the harm in the previous month, or specifically with the interrelation with the rabbit that's there, right? And then for those who have, okay, then there's the ability to acknowledge that I have done what I can to grow, okay, and I now need to be able to let go so I can also heal, right? So that's where the healing actually becomes a theme that is one of the anchors of the dragon, right? So this is the information that was first revealed, okay, by Jessie in the Grand Centurion Portal workshops, right? When it comes to the theme, the main theme of each of the animal signs, right? So the dragon is all about healing, right? And we see this in all, right? In all the methods of analysis of astrology and so on, right? That I basically am aware of, okay? So I'm sure there's many branches and subset, right, which is basically out of my knowledge at the moment, but from every perspective that I see this thing coming back, right? So it is this ability to heal and the degree of healing that we've done that will also determine how much of the self-punishment that we feel, right? Because the more that we have done it, the less it will feel like it is a self-punishing month, and the more it will feel like perhaps maybe it's just a overload of responsibilities, for example. Okay, so that's a very, very key, right? If not the main theme of this particular Dragon month itself that we want to work from. So that's why it is the possibility and the opportunity, right, that we can still do this with the tremendous power of the eclipses, which already started with the lunar eclipse on March 25th, and then particularly with the reset opportunity that the total solar eclipse brings us on April 8th and 9th. We can still have this work done where we emphasize our own personal healing, but in order to do that, of course, there is the release that is needed, the release of the wrongdoings. That's why Heavenly Pardon is such a good day, right? To have forgiveness and also to do forgiveness rituals, and also to anchor down to the core of forgiveness or whatever area it is, or whatever person, what situation that we actually have to do that. If not, then the heavy energies due to the unhealed self is where these blockages and the self-punishment is going to manifest. Okay? So now, to encourage this, right? So remember that whatever that we can do, right, there is some there's a lot of opportunities still within the month of the Dragon for us to, like I said, if we are able to basically look into the deepest areas that we are healing from, or we have not healed enough, or for those amongst us who have not even really thought of that particular perspective, right? So this is the month to do so, because whatever it is that we can heal, whatever extent that we can actually move from point A of healing to point B in an improved sense, then that is where, right, along with that is the release of the attachment, right? If you're able to combust, right, the heaviness away, at least at some portions of it, right, then of course things will be lighter, right? And then the obstacles will be obliterated a little bit, and then it will not feel as heavy, right, if we are able to maximize on these particular energies. And also, then that's also setting the tone for the future. Now, the future can be ahead, right, in the number of years. The future can be the next 19 plus years of period 9, right? But in the very least, right, we can also then clear and get some things done, right, some results to be delivered or manifested by the time autumn comes along, right? Because this is another thing which is very interesting, the correlation of energy, right? Every April is directly connected to every September, right, in the astrology sense, right? Every Dragon month is always connected to the Rooster month, right? So this is the only connection that you can find, heaven and earth. It's a heaven and earth combination. It's also the shadow pillar, whatever you call it, right? From the entire 12 animal signs relating to the 10 heavenly stems. It's the only pairing that is establishing a pattern like that, right? So that's why whatever work that we can do in April, right, will also give us the results, or whatever work that we don't do, which is also going to give us the anti-results. Anti-results means something will also occur because of an action not taken, or an action taken in the wrong way, so on and so forth, right? You will also get the results come September. So that's the bonus point, okay, if we are able to make full use, and if we're able to take control over the self-punishment, right? Take opportunity of the self-punishment instead through all those ways that I just mentioned, including doing a lot of the personal alignment inner work. That's why we keep talking about it, we keep promoting it, and we keep encouraging you guys to do it, as many people to do it. Of course, we're getting some traction lah. It's creating some results, but you know, it's still, you know, far beyond ideal, right? Because a lot of people are not open to it, or a lot of people don't like it because it's uncomfortable, and a lot of people are not comfortable with it because it disturbs the ego, it triggers the ego, right? But it is very, very, very good and very, very powerful, right? Not just for the current circumstance that's already won, but also for the entire period 9, right? The lighter we are, the more transparent we are, the more transcendent that we are, right, in terms of our energy, physical body, and also subtle body, right? The more we can directly connect to the pretty much open portals of period 9, which are only available in period 9, right, as has been shared through many sharings and so on, yeah? So remember, this is something to keep in mind, right? If we can do the work in April, then we can get the results in at least some one layer of it, because it's layered. There's the transition of the annual energy that is tied down to the monthly progression. Then there's the transition of the bigger cyclical energy, for example, 12-year cycle, that is linked to the years as they roll by, right? So this is one layer, but then it's an opportunity for us to also fast track in a positive way to get the ideal and not to instead end up with something that we go like, oops, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that. Sort of a feeling. Okay, so remember, April is always connected to September. Yeah. So Ong Te Yi says, how to minimize the impact of self-punishment, or should I say how we neutralize the intense energy? So those are the key ways that I mentioned, right? Te Yi, I don't know whether you caught. You've just joined us, right? Perhaps you have lah. So it is basically understanding where it comes from first. Okay, and remember, the crux of it comes from delayed personal growth work, right? We can talk about it as growth in general, but whatever it is, it comes from a wounded self, right? We all have our own inner wounds, right? Our inner child is the one that carries a lot of it, if not the majority of it, right? And our adult life is basically, for many of us, right, is a reversal of that. So most of us spend our adult life healing our inner child or early, it might not be child per se, but early life wounds. Then there are some of us or some people that are probably not linked to any of these subjects, for example, probably not following this type of information, not this Facebook Live, right, are the ones who are completely unaware. So that means they portray the adult life, and maybe for the rest of their life, right, according to their wounded early inner child, right? So for many people in the whole globe actually do that. So the whole life is about fixing their inner child wound, right? Or rather portraying the inner child wound, right? Then those who realize it are actually taking steps to do it, whether they are following a subject like Chinese Metaphysics or Western Astrology, or they have guidance and coaching from people who are into NLP and things like that, right? And they are then fixing it, right, throughout. Okay, so that is the key here. So it depends on the level of this healing work. Right? So if you have done enough of it, then of course this is where you will feel less of it as a punishment outside of maybe, like maybe a stacking up of obligations, a stacking of work and responsibility. But if it's due to own doing and is open-heartedly doing it, then it's a very minimal feel. But if it's a heavy feel, and if it's something that has a lot of the, like I said, either a repercussion of stagnating obstacles, okay, or a pile up of things that fall through, okay, that is a question of the growth, right, level in the preceding years specifically. Of course, we look into it as the whole life. But if we want to pinpoint, then it will be the specific years of course, 2022 and 2023. Not done or done. And because it's got to do with personal healing, right, so it has to do with the ability to let go of attachment. So that means it could be people, it could be areas of life, it could be just a mindset that something has to be a certain way, because that mindset of something has to be a certain way is also an attachment, right? So in letting go of any of these or all of these or a combination of all these, right, is where we are combusting these attachments, we're obliterating them, so it frees up the heaviness of the self-punishment, right? Is ego part of the main reason of self-punishment happen? Ego is, as I was reminded very recently, right, is the culprit to pretty much everything, right? Now, we don't have to just look at ego from like the face value perspective, right? Or the pride, because those are the very common generalizations of ego. Face value, I don't want to damage my reputation. I don't want to be seen as weak. I don't want to be seen as incompetent. I don't want to be seen as arrogant, blah, blah, blah. That's very surface value, face value, right? Then, of course, the other one is the ego in terms of its rearing its head in terms of pride. I'm proud to be this, right? I'm very happy or satisfied with my level in society, my amount of wealth, right? Maybe the assets that I own, the people that I control, right? That is the pride-related ego, but there's a lot of different facets to it, right? And whatever it is that triggers us is actually basically egoic in nature, right? So that is the key there, okay? So on that note, let me just quickly check here. So, okay, all right, no other further questions from now, okay? So we'll just move on to the next portion, right, which basically emphasizes the strength of what we have. Because, you know, every April can roll along, right? Okay, every month, every year, sorry, has an April, right? And then every period 9, if we have the perennial soul existence beyond 180 years, we can experience 2 period 9s, right? Whether in this human form or other. Okay, so it does roll along, right? Every 180 plus years. Okay, but it may not always be timed as such, okay, with all the other phenomena. But here we see something that is correlating strongly to this, which is basically the eclipse cycle occurring first, of course, with the March 25th penumbral lunar eclipse, which is last month. I also covered it in last month's outlook, right? And so here, in this particular case, that lunar eclipse is on heightening, or rather the strength of it, creating awareness, because it basically heightens the shadow, okay, and it brings to life a better perspective of the yin, which is our inner mind, right? Our soul wanting to improve and to learn, okay, and the lessons that we learn as humans, our souls residing in our human bodies, right? So the lunar eclipse is basically a heightened full moon. So this one basically brought out the awareness, if we are in tune, of what changes in the relationship dynamics that we need to make, right, amongst the people that we have, based on our personal values, who and what we vibe with, and how other people fit into that, right? How do we manage people who don't fit into it from a positive perspective, meaning that we are the ones who actually have to manage the energy, not expecting people to do it naturally, right? Because it's something that maybe does not jive with us, or maybe we need to basically adjust ourselves so that we can fine tune or alter our vibration so that we can find the people who match us better in the future that we want to see, right? So that is important. So related to this, of course, would be, in some circumstances, change, right? Some people need to split up. Some people need to live. You may have to let some people leave, right? And the awareness is heightened from the lunar eclipse of March. Then, of course, where we want to connect with, that is going to be key for the whole of period 9, right, is to be more connected to our heart. How do we feel, right? The connection to an open heart, right? Be able to allow, for example, right, to give people a chance to see things in a more humane way, right? To love more unconditionally, etc., etc. If we can link to that, and then when we can connect to how we think, right, the emotions that trigger how we think, for example, that's when we will have the control over the life that we want to have, right? So the manifestation and then the result from the heart connecting to the mind will give us better control over how we want things to roll out in the future for period 9 overall, yeah? So then now, of course, we're leading and building up to the counterpart, the big here, the big total solar eclipse, which has been in the astrologers' minds for years, in fact, right? They, of course, term it the Great North American Eclipse because of the eclipse path, right? So we will go to that in 1 minute time, okay? Not yet, but on cue, yeah? So Teng Yi says awareness would be the key to healing. Of course, awareness is actually the first level, okay, to any breakthroughs that we want to do, right? So yes, it would be. Okay, so now, this is the big whammy here, right? So after the heightened awareness of the inner mind, okay, the inner emotional body, okay, from the lunar eclipse, then now we are working now with the reset, of course, that is afforded by the solar eclipse, right? So this is where, of course, where the moon is in the position of the placement between the earth and also the sun, right? So it gives it a point out, black out situation, right? Where the yin and yang are basically in alignment, okay, with each other. Now, of course, it's a void, it's an open portal for that particular point in time, which then, of course, once it starts to split, the eclipse starts to move on, then we have the rebirth process. So overall, all solar eclipses are powerful reset points. Now, particularly, of course, for this particular solar eclipse, even more so, okay, because it occurs in April of 2024 with all those other themes that I talked about, and also with the different ways, different astrology systems, in fact, right, also point to the same story, of which I will elaborate further, right? But in this case, it's a reset particularly for the personal will and everything that's associated with that, right? So it is our drive, it's our personal power, right? It's what we want to do with it. So in particular, I see it as related to our root and also as a solar plexus, right? The solar plexus, of course, it's the seat of our personal empowerment, right? Not in terms of what we just want to achieve and all that, but how we basically take everything into account, how we take responsibility, how we're able to basically not shirk from responsibility, how we're not threatened, okay, by people who actually have more power or have more designated power, and so on and so forth, right? That's the solar plexus. And of course, working with this in this particular case, right, it's a very much a fire-related energy, okay, that we're talking about. Is the root chakra, right, which is basically earth element, which is powered by fire or strengthened by fire, right? So this is where the seat of our security, the seat of our sense of things are okay lah, in general, right, is basically the trigger, right, for us to in a positive way or negative way, right? Negative way, that means it's going to trigger fear of those security issues, right, or the lack of power and the feelings of being threatened, okay, whether it is something that is tangible or something that we envision in our mind, right? And then at the same time, this will of course affect or is correlated to the strength of the empowerment seat, which is basically the solar plexus itself, yeah? But the key thing is here, right, because the theme is healing, so this is where we are able to use the reset that is given by the total solar eclipse for transformation, which is another main theme here, right, through healing itself, right? So taking the reality of what we see leading up to April, okay, right now, right here, and then the work that we can do, as Teck Yi had questioned as well, and then also the amount, the level of transformation that we can basically do, right, so that we can use the opportunity to heal. And when we arise anew, this is when we may, right, or we want, if we want to take full use of the opportunity, right, to steer our course differently, right, because it's a reset point, right? So what changes do you want to make, having gone through the self-punishing month, right, with the power to reset that is afforded by the eclipse, provided that we do the work ourselves, okay? So now, from the technical perspective, right, let's take a look at the eclipse path, okay, and see how it is. Let's take a look at the eclipse path and see how it is, right, just for overall awareness sake. So the reason why it's called the Great North American Eclipse is because it traverses, okay, sort of here in the Pacific middle, and then it moves northwards towards North America, and then it actually covers the key parts of Central America and I would say the southern parts of America per se, even though of course the penumbral, the lighter shadow, is basically traversing completely through, except maybe some portions in Alaska, right? So it goes on this particular path, and then it veers into, of course, Europe, and then also into the northern areas, Iceland and Finland, and especially Greenland, and so on and so forth, right? So this is the path of the eclipse itself. So astrologers have been talking about this, naming it after North America, which is where most of the path covers, yeah? And if you take a look at how this eclipse is going to play out in these areas, right? So this is the eclipse that us in Asia will not have the privilege to witness, because our eclipse point is in the middle of the night, right? Midnight after into the wee early hours of the morning. But this perfect, beautiful eclipse, right, is the eclipse that's going to be the path, they call it, that is going to be in the main areas that I pointed out, particularly where the umbra is, right, the darkest portion of the eclipse. So it's very, very, very perfect. So that's why they call it the total solar eclipse, right? Let's take a look, right, at the approaching eclipse here. So you see it comes out from the side. I use these terms very loosely, okay? And then after that, it comes into basically the moon shadow, right, comes into pretty much covers the entire sun, okay, from those places in the world. And then when it leaves in a bit of a curvature, right, towards the in this case, you know, the top lah. Again, I'm just using these terms very, very loosely, right? This is where it is, right? Just share this, okay, for our information, okay? Now let's get back to the the presentation material. The question is, Sunita, right? What is the effect if we are on this path? So we can tell on one level, okay, the key lessons, okay, in this case, of course, all those lessons that I mentioned, self-punishment and so on, right, based on the locality of the person generally. Now, travel aside, right, it's just the way synchronicity works. The divine synchronicity works this way, okay? So that's why most of Americans, okay, will experience this, okay, in an intense fashion. It's basically collectively meant to be a reset point, not just a wake-up call, because the wake-up calls already came from especially a couple of years ago, right? But this is the opportunity for a reset point, and the reset point that comes when we have arrived at a particular point of stagnation, right? Or a pile up of obstacles and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that's how we can read the locality and the geography of people who are in the different parts of the world. So for those of us in Asia, right, we still go through, of course, the intense energies, and for this, we are also curating an online program, right, which is starting right before the eclipse begins. Okay, so we have an evening program on April the 8th, GMT plus 8, because it's Malaysia time, right? I believe it starts at 8 o'clock. And then by the time it concludes, it will tie in with the beginning of the eclipse, no matter of, which part of the world they're in. But of course, for us, it's going into the midnight hours. And then while, of course, the western part of the world, North America, for example, is experiencing it in the midday hour, right? Or late morning. So that's the power that we see of not only the eclipse cycle, right, but we will stack it into what we also know from many perspectives, yeah? And also, then we have the Mercury retrograde that's happening at the same time, right? So, see, Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year, okay? It's not a Chinese astrology thing, but we know from understanding it overall, right, it really does add a layer to things overall, okay? Because in this particular case, a retrograde can occur any point of the year, 3 times, of course, but it's occurring in April. And it can also occur where Mercury, the planet itself, right, can be in any part of its orbit, okay? But at this particular moment, it is actually in Aries, okay? And why is this significant, okay? In case you're saying, okay, I don't really understand this. In this case, for this particular month, right, you don't need to understand even as much, okay, when it comes to Western astrology concepts. Because the Aries season, right, is basically the season that we are basically in now, okay, which lasts from basically March, okay, the point of equinox onwards, spring equinox up to the following 4 weeks of that. So Aries season is the Western astrology sign season. Just like us, we've got Dragon month, right? So Aries is the one that overlaps in between the rabbit and also the dragon. See the 2 animal signs which are linked, rabbit and also dragon, right? And then at the same time, all these other planets, Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, and so on, they can be orbiting anywhere, okay? It doesn't have to follow the year, the season of the year per se, but it is in Aries, and it is now going to retrograde, or rather it started its retrograde already a few days ago, April 1st, in the same sign of where the season is. If we look at it from a Western astrology perspective, that's why the solar eclipse is happening in the sign of Aries. Get this? Then we have a Mercury retrograde that's happening in the sign of Aries. So whatever it is, it's got to do with Aries, which is about new starts from the Western horoscope perspective, right? It's the first of the season, the first of the signs, because it is kicking off at the spring equinox. So that's why it's very powerful. We see a Mercury retrograding, not just only in April, but in the same sign of Aries, because it can be retrograding in any sign, right? But it just so happens to be retrograding in Aries itself, okay? So now, for those of you who are interested, of course, here's some additional information I can offer here, right? And I will, of course, summarize the key point for those of you who are not as familiar, right, when it comes to Western astrology perspective. So the first portion here I covered already, right? Now we're seeing a big reset possibility, opportunity in Aries, okay, because we have a Mercury retrograde there, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with retrogrades, it just means that it goes back, it seemingly moves backwards. It does not, okay, I've covered that topic, and even Jessie has as well, right, in our Facebook lives, right? And it is an opportunity for us to literally go back and retrace our path, okay? So Mercury is the instant connection of mind energy, the instant linkage between communication overall, right? Whether it's through the mind power, or through the words that we use, right? The energetic connections that we have shared with people. So that's all anchored down by the planet called Mercury. Anything that's linking two objects or two atoms in the whole universe, okay? Then at the same time, we also have Venus in Aries. Remember, any of these planets can be in any horoscope, in any sign, okay? It just so happens that Venus just entered Aries as well today, April the 4th, right? Will be in there for pretty much the bulk of April. And then we have Mars that's going to enter Aries. Mars is the planet that anchors the energy of Aries, the Western astrology horoscope sign. So that's why Mars is significant as a planet right now, okay? And it not only enters right at the end of April, right? Right now, Mars is in the previous sign of Pisces, which is a very opposite field. It's the final of the Western astrology signs, which means it's about wrap up and endings. So it's again similar tune here, right? And it is of course going to conjunct Neptune also in the same sign like April 10th, right? That's an additional thing because Neptune is the anchor of the Pisces sign and is all about the deepest depths of our humanness linked to the energy of water overall. So we have Mars, which is a very fiery yang sign because, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. That whole concept comes from there, right? So we've got the yang in the depths of something that is very watery, which is very flowy and yin. And then we have Venus, which starting today, which is feminine, of course, the feminine principle, entering into Aries, of which is anchored or powered by Mars, its home planet. You see the interrelation there, yang and yin, yin and also in yang. So hold that thought. I'll talk about it, which is a important theme overall for 2024. Then, just to wrap up this particular portion here, right? When we talk about the what's coming next, okay? What is coming next after the sign of Aries? What's coming next after the Chinese month of the dragon? Is going to be the snake month, right? So similarly, Taurus follows Aries. Okay, and here we have, of course, already Jupiter. Jupiter, of course, when we look at it from the Chinese astrology perspective, right, it is Tai Sui. That's why we follow the movement of Jupiter, okay, closely to see what else it is interrelating with, right? So Jupiter has already been in this sign of Taurus, right, for quite about, I think, almost a year per se, but it has retrograde and all that, right? But ever since December, right, kicking off after the winter solstice, okay, it is directly moving and activating Taurus, which for us loosely termed as the year of the dragon. So that's why, because when it did that, also it pushed the energy of the dragon in earlier as well from the Western astrology perspective. So this is now going to meet the electrifying planet of Uranus, which is related to, of course, Aquarius. You may have heard about the age of Aquarius and so on, right? But it's also highly related in this particular cycle. I can't say for before or after, okay, this particular period 9 that we are in now. Okay, the energy is also highly related. So they will be conjunct. Conjunct means they are going to activate each other. They will be in the same part of the universal sky from us observing from planet Earth, right? So this is going to conjunct. That means they're going to come together, activate each other. So already Jupiter is associated with Tai Sui, the year. So that's why we see it occurring here, overlapping into the double dragon month. The Tai Sui is the dragon, right? The dragon year. Now it's going to meet the dragon month. Then we see the same heightened principle here from the Western astrology perspective, and then it's going to meet and be activated and also combusted or triggered, whatever you call it, with Uranus, which is the electrifying energy of period 9 overall. So this occurs at around April 20th, plus minus 1-2 days, and this is where the sun moves into the sign of Taurus. Now what it means, it just means like for us moving into dragon month, or moving ahead into the snake month, is the same principle. It's just because it occurs in the 2 weeks overlap to the Chinese astrology sign. So if you get it, you get it. If you don't, then is something that you might want to learn up more, or if not, it's okay, right? What it just means that there's an electrifying amplification of energy that is going to re-trigger period 9, okay, overall, right? Working with the energy of the yearly dragon, the annual dragon, at around April 20th, 21st. A very, very powerful period overall, right? Which means that if you've done the work earlier on, whatever that I've talked about so far, right, using the reset energy and transformational opportunity of the total solar eclipse occurring around 8th or 9th, plus, of course, then when you come to this is a great period overall in the second half of our dragon month itself, right, to then regrow, to use the changes, the reset, the steering, and the adjustment of path, right, and then ride with the energy, right? Of course, there are ways to use it. You can activate it more with feng shui if you know how to. You can also then time, for example, whatever new things that you want to do around that time. And then, of course, best of all, the most effective is to do the transformational reset work that you have done and follow through with it with this energy that is available in the second half of the month of the dragon itself. Yeah. So this is just a little bit of what I was talking about here. Right? Just real quick here. So this is where we have the opportunity to really tap into the totality of energy, right? Because when we have the availability of looking into the yin aspects, right? Not just on the outward yang aspect, which is basically a lot to do with what we want to achieve, what we want to do, right? So most of the time we are focused on that. But when we do something like inner work, for example, we're turning inwards and we're working into the yin energy that is part of our half equation. So it is when we do both together that we collectively are able to harness total energy instead of just 50% of it. Whereas most of the time we're very preoccupied with just working at the 50, right? And we see this in many of the charts of the year itself, including where we are now with the planetary movements. Just now we're saying Mars in Pisces, but at the end of the month, April 30th, will move into its home sign of Aries, right? But for now, it's the energy of putting the yang into the yin. Okay, it is putting personal desire or will, whatever that we want to achieve, right, into a deeper perspective. And then vice versa. With Venus in Aries, right, the feminine principle residing within the masculine, the yin and the yang, which is happening mostly again through the month of April, right? It just so happens to be that way, remember, right? Not every April you have the transiting planets in the signs like that, nicely helping us, right? Where this Venus in Aries, right, throughout most of the month is going to give us the opportunity to extract, to discover, okay, awareness, like Te was saying, right, of our newly defined values. What has changed in your perception? What is now important to you, which you never really acknowledged until now, or you know that it's there, but you don't want to face? This is the perfect time to do it. Then anchor down with a heart energy. This will then guide the personal will, the Mars principle, right, the masculine, once we get into the second half of the month, right? And we see this overlapping of the yin-yang in a lot of the reminder of working into the totality of the yin and the yang energy, or rather the yang and especially important, the yin energy, right? To basically harness everything as much as possible, yeah? So because of this, so I just loosely basically split the month into two, literally, right? So from tomorrow, where we transit officially into the month of the Earth Dragon, up to the 19th, thereabouts, right? So we want to work with the energy of the solar eclipse. We want to work with the self-punishing energies of the double dragon, right? To reflect and then hopefully to release so that we can then realign, right? So remember, the best way to do it is through your own work. Okay, and then the tools to help that, there's so many things that you can do. Of course, you can use sound. You can use your own physical work. Remember, when you physically do the work, such as if you do yoga, you do stretching, right? It is more effective than, say, being stretched or having a massage. Even though, of course, that would help to some degree, right? And then you want to use it to realign. So that's very key. If there's nothing changed, there's nothing to realign, or you don't have to reset anything, right? But this is where the opportunity to do exactly this is here, okay? And then also physical body realignment, right? Around the 20th, like I said, that's going to be a very, we have a big boost of energy there that is right at the center of the month, okay? And that's going to help us basically regrow ourselves, right? with this realignment that we're doing. So maximize that usage, okay, in the best way, but we have to do the prior work that's in the first half of the month, okay. And speaking of which also, I don't know how many guys are listening in right now who are part of the Men's Sacred Circle, or Sacred Men's Circle, or interested in joining me on that, right? So I'm also timing a special physical edition, right, of the circle on April 20th itself. So I have not had the link up and running yet, but once I do that, then of course it will be available for registration, and it's going to be a very powerful opportunity to work with our physical energy, our subtle energy field that goes beyond the physical, right, that is pre-dedicated by the chakras, right, at this particular timing, right? And it's very important, of course, for the masculine physical body, right, to actually work with this, because it will have a lot of benefits, more so than any other period. So that's why I've timed it there. So please do join me. If you're a regular, I thank you for being part of the circle and contributing energy. And if you're not, and you would like to do it for the first time, I highly encourage you to join all of the guys, right? So on April the 20th. So after that is the transition period, right? This is where we can energize, and we can, of course, then implement those changes, those actual changes in action that we are going to take. And then, of course, with those changes and those actions taking, right, and contributing energy in that new altered way, of course, to get somewhere, to get something that we want to see come to fruition, and so that we can collect, or rather see it manifest in our near future, right? So the future is actually not far away, right? So just as a short reminder here, right? So it's an opportunity for us in April to really look deep and importantly heal. Because it's in the healing process that we're not only healing ourselves and rejuvenating ourselves and freeing up an energy that is holding us or once held us back, but it's also in this healing that we're able to bring forth, hopefully, to the realignments that we're doing. That's the main follow through from the healing work. Where do you then bring yourself based on what you have healed from, so that then that particular energy can help contribute to the world? That healed energy can help contribute to the world. That is where the deepest adjustment can be made, right? Through realigning our purpose, adjusting it, right, at least a little bit, or doing a 180, right? Completely adjusting it and going on a different path altogether, right? Because there are exciting follow-throughs, not only in the second half of the energy in April, but also in May, right? In May, with the work that you will be doing and you can do and will be done, it leads to a lot of potential to basically create whatever that you want to do, right? Shape whatever reality that you want to have, right? And also start to link into whatever results or end results that you want to foresee, right, in the near and also the longer term future that is coming up in May, right? So I will talk about that more, because today's session, to my surprise, actually ran over time already. Yeah? I thought it would be like a 1 hour session. The last time I finished in 45 minutes, okay?
I'm not surprised.
The last podcast was done in 45 minutes. Okay, but today's, because they're multi-layered, I really want to share the layers of the energy with you, right? So that you don't miss out on this very, very powerful month of April. Okay, so let's bring back the beautiful double dragons so that we can appreciate them. Okay, as we end, yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. And remember a few things here, right? So if you been wanting to get an Atma bowl, of course, one of the most important ways or usage of it will be in the month of April for realignment. You can do it at your own pace, in your own sort of comfort of zone. And those of you who are familiar with the dates that Jessie offered, and we also shared it yesterday, April 17th. We have no opportunity here, no time to basically reshare it. So remember, look back into last evening's Facebook Live for more details if you want to do that. If you want to get a bowl for future purposes, because the turnover time, right, is going to be about 8 to 10 weeks here. You will not get it in time for April 17th if you're ordering this, because each bowl is specially made to order and specially crafted. Right? There's a lot of adjustment work that they have to do to each bowl to get the exact note, and they are only released when they meet that exact specification, right? So you can order your bowl through the link there. Remember, there is going to be a very powerful opportunity to work with the eclipse energy, to join us, right, in our inner work, right? That's happening right preceding the eclipse. This is happening on GMT the 8th. Let's bring that out. The portal unleashed, right? So no matter where you are in the world, if you're able to join us for this, right, 8 p.m., beginning at 8 p.m., right preceding the eclipse, okay? Please do join us for this very powerful session. We're curating it, we're fine-tuning it as we speak, right? It's going to consist, of course, of sound, more likely towards the end for recalibration purposes, and then, of course, with breath work and other meditations as well. So please join us. No matter which part of the world you are, please sign up for this Portal Unleashed that's happening, okay, on the evening preceding the eclipse itself, okay? So that's happening this coming Monday. So lots of other things which are happening. Stay tuned, right? And then, of course, speaking of staying tuned, this is happening in 2 days' time, okay? If you are curious about sound, how it works, okay, how it can help us, how it is the future of medicine now, because the future is here now already, right? Then, of course, do check out this free online preview. It is absolutely complimentary, and of course, no obligations after that. We do have the actual course which is happening at the end of the month, right? But for more information preceding that, do join us for the preview, which is happening at 9 p.m. GMT plus 8 Malaysia time on the evening of Saturday, 6th of April as well. Okay, so that's that. Lots of exciting things happening, and see, our focus here is really to promote inner work, breath work, sound, personal movement, and so on and so forth, so that we can actively participate in basically creating a lighter energy body, which is then able to access magic of period 9 much better. Okay, Elena, can be sent to Europe. You talk, Elena. There's a question on the bowl, right? Yes, right. We've had, of course, the initial orders sent to various points around the world, to the US, to Italy, which is, of course, in Europe. So, of course, there will be some additional shipping fees, which we have a guide, right? I believe on our website, the order site, right? So check that out, Elena. Yes, it is possible to get it delivered to you, right, in Europe itself, right? Jessie Fu, you're welcome. Okay, and I think that's about it. Let's quickly scroll through that. Yeah, welcome Sunita. Quick hellos here to Joan Vega, Joanna, Ng Lee Kwan, right? Amy Lee, Sirius, right? You guys back from Japan yet? Okay, Bowling and so on, right? Who had joined us earlier, right? And thank you so much for your time. Yeah, so just wrapping up now, since we went over. Thank you, Grace. Thanks for staying present online as well. Okay, so make full use of April. Okay, it is here. It is now, of course, entering into the day itself, right? It officially starts tomorrow, April the 5th, lasting to May the 4th. And of course, if you can work with us to work for you, that would be also very much encouraged as well. Yeah, you're welcome, Margaret. Okay, everyone take care and have a really, really productive and transformative April of 2024. Bye-bye.